What's up YouTube, ODST General back again with another Warthunder video. And today guys, we're going to be checking out the Battle of the Atlantic for the Warthunder special event during the 1 year, or not the 1 year anniversary, the 11-year anniversary for the game. This event is the third time submarines have come to Warthunder, and it is pretty darn cool. I've definitely enjoyed it so far. Not everybody's going to like this event, which could be really said of all these special events, certainly, but perhaps this one a little bit more so than others. So here you have one of my first, if not my first time actually playing the submarines. You see me accidentally dropping a mine in front of a teammate, which thankfully did not kill him. I was freaking out about that during the game. I don't know if I had my audio muted or if it had hooked to the wrong thing and was using the wrong audio recording device, but the in-game recording I had done during talking didn't get recorded. Thankfully the actual sounds and everything did. But yeah, so we have basically two factions going up against each other in this. One is the Americans, who are defending a convoy of AI ships. They're using destroyers and frigates and once again enough points PBY planes to drop bombs and try to kill the submarines. On the other side is the Germans with the Type 7 U-boats, which of course is new to the game, and they get HE-111 bombers once they accumulate enough points to do so. This is, of course, based in arcade like other events are, and it works very differently from previous submarine events. So we had two other submarine events in the game where obviously was, fairly modern subs, and you had completely different sonar stuff. You had, wire-guided torpedoes and stuff like that, or remote-controlled torpedoes. I'm not sure if those were wire-guided or remote-controlled, but you were able to control the torpedoes, or you could set them to a semi-passive tracking mode and everything. That is not what this is like at all. If you want to fire a torpedo in this, you can fire them blind underwater, but in order to actually find out where you should properly shoot a torpedo, you need to either surface to the point that you can use your periscope, which is new, and target the enemy vessel. So you have to basically hold them in your sights for a long enough period, and they'll tell you if you're close enough where to fire the torpedo. The torpedoes are very limited on range. I think they only have a range of 1.8 to 2.0 in distance. I don't know the exact distance on it, but it's not very far. You have to be pretty close to actually target a vessel with your torpedo and actually be able to hit it. You can also surface and have your deck out of the water, and then you can just spot using a set of binoculars and stuff, which gives you a much wider field of view. You also move faster while surfaced, but of course you are very exposed. You are very easy to shoot from the surface, but there is pros and cons because it does give you much better situational awareness. If the weather provides, being surfaced in a submarine does definitely grant for much better speed and, like I said, and just general situational awareness. But the submarines are currently equipped with two weapons. One is the G7E torpedo, which is a forward-facing torpedo in this case. The Type 7 does have a rear torpedo launcher, but that instead utilizes naval mines, which will float up to the surface and work just like naval mines have worked in the game previously. The Americans are rocking a number of different weapons on their ships. They have access to torpedoes from the destroyers. They have new depth charges, which these depth charges will actually sink down and explode seemingly at random depths. I don't know if it's proximity based or if there's some other way that they work, but they do now sink down and will explode and cause damage to stuff underwater, and they're not nearly as frightening to stuff on the surface. And then they also have the Hedgehog depth charge launchers, which are placed in different spots on the different ships. The destroyers launch them off the sides. The frigates launch them in front of them a short ways, and those will go down pretty quick, and they're pretty devastating too. This is a cool shot. This is one of my favorite shots. I actually took a screenshot of this particular shot here in the game, which you have my submarine down low at about 51 meters in depth, and then you have the other one up near the surface at periscope depth. The submarines can safely dive to about 60 meters, give or take. They start taking damage around 60, and then the deeper you go, the faster you start taking damage. With that being said, around 60 or so is where it starts to actually become safe from a lot of the depth charges, but again, you are taking damage, so it's kind of a trade-off. You basically risk damage to depth charges, which can be significant, versus potentially, putting your ship into crush depth, and you will be for sure taking damage, but probably not quite as significant, quite as fast. So there is reason to take your submarine down to crush depth, at least for limited periods, but you definitely don't want to stay down there. This game mode, it's really hard to judge in this game mode how balanced submarines could potentially be in a proper game, because this game mode is so specifically curated to submarines. It's really hard to judge the PvP aspect of them. In terms of PvP, it definitely seems to favor the destroyers and the frigates, which are typically outnumbered by the German submarines by at least 2 players, sometimes 3 from what I've seen. But with that being said, obviously with the submarines generally being pretty easy to spot when their periscopes are up or if they're surfaced, it's really easy for the destroyers to run them down or shoot at them. Now, while they're submerged even at periscope depth, the surface guns don't do much, but the torpedoes, if you're near the surface, can hit you. Those are really devastating. The depth charges and the Hedgehog launchers are very devastating. The PBY bombers can drop 500-pounder bombs. The 100-pounders, when I was playing this, were like really effective, and it seems like they maybe possibly patched it or something. They're definitely a lot less effective than I noticed. It might just be that some players have kind of adapted how they're playing now, and they're sitting a little bit deeper than they were otherwise, which seems to have been the case too. But yeah, again, this is still pretty early after the event dropped. I think this is day 1 from the event dropping, and I'm just now getting around to actually getting this stuff edited and everything. But yeah, it's been a blast for me. It's definitely a slower paced gameplay, especially from the German side. The American side is a lot faster because you are in a arcade style destroyer. You're able to turn pretty tight. You move at pretty decent speeds, and you have unlimited weaponry, because if you run out of weapons, you just, put more in. You just keep going through, and that timer will click down, and then you just get more weapons reloaded. So I don't think that's the case with the German stuff. I haven't actually really tested it. I haven't really wanted to just use up all my equipment and then have nothing left. It doesn't really matter too much usually anyways. Typically speaking, if you're playing legitimately, the equipment on the German subs for the most part is pretty generous in terms of just proper gameplay. Of course, you could just constantly pop naval mines nonstop, and that would probably be very effective, but as far as the torpedoes go, you really don't need more torpedoes than what you get in most cases, I find. I guess, again, you could just spam them out in random directions and be able to hit the fleet, so I'm guessing that you don't get restocks on them. And again, it would be kind of nice to have a better idea of what this would look like as proper PvP gameplay, because again, this is very specifically curated to this game mode. You can just see I just also got a kill on one of the Tacomas, which is one of the frigates, up on the surface there with a naval mine. He didn't see or wasn't ready for and crashed right into it and died, which is really cool looking underwater, and it looks both really awesome seeing the explosion and hearing it kind of muffled a little bit is really neat. But yeah, again, like I was starting to say, the game mode's very curated because you do have basically 2 spawns for both teams essentially right next to the convoy within a grid square of it. And because the submarines are so slow, it's still a challenge for the submarines to get to them. Whereas with the destroyers, it's not so much of a challenge for them to get to the submarines and attack them. Obviously in a proper game mode, submarines are either going to need their own spawns, then that means, where they can spawn a lot closer to the enemy team. It would have to be quite significantly so, or, you're going to be reliant on more dynamic weather coming to missions potentially, because in this game mode, I've seen some variation in the weather where sometimes it's more hazy or stormier than others, and it's really difficult to see. In most cases, it's pretty similar to what you're seeing in this video here, but I've definitely seen some others where I could surface as a submarine very safely, and the enemy couldn't spot me because they couldn't see their hand in front of their nose, It's one of those things, so it is very depending on the weather and stuff like that, there is some other factors as far as like being spotted and speed and stuff like that, but because the submarines are already so slow at full speed, you're kind of pushed to not want to go very slow to hide how detectable you are. If you look at the mini-map, you can see a red circle where I'm at, and as I change speed and stuff like that, that circle will grow and shrink and stuff like that, so it can pretty much go just around your submarine if you come to a complete stop. Now, with that being said, if a American vessel is coming to you, they will see sonar pings for your approximate location. It is much more confined than what this red circle is, so they'll have a much better idea of where you're at, and they will go to that spot. Once they get close enough to you, if they're pretty much more or less right on top of you, sometimes, again, it depends on your exact speed and everything, they'll start to actually get pings that outline your submarine, and they can see exactly how deep you are, and your direction you're facing, all that stuff, whether or not you're moving. It's not a constant thing on screen, it's just when the sonar pings, so you'll kind of change positions a little bit here and there on them, kind of like a really slow slideshow or something, but they are still quite accurate. It's enough so because you are so slow that they can very, very easily use that to hunt you down and start dropping depth charges and stuff like that. So finally, we're in range of the convoy here, and we're going to start targeting down and firing off torpedoes. We're at the back end of the convoy, as you guys can kind of see. The game mode's changed a little bit too. They've gotten rid of the two team bars up at the top, and now it's replaced with a timer and a countdown of the vessel. So as a American, you're going to see 13 of 13. AI ships are still alive. If you're a German, you'll see 0 of 13 until you start getting kills. So basically, as a German, you want to get that 0 up to 13, and as an American, you want to keep at least one of those ships alive. You need to keep at least one of the 13 alive. You don't have to keep all 13 alive, but you want to keep at least one. And of course, the Americans also have the option to either kill all of the Germans, which, like I said, they are outnumbered by a couple players, and it is definitely kind of challenging to kill a submarine, especially if it's staying at depth and they're being kind of smart about it and they're only surfacing really quick to attack. Alternatively, you can just run down the timer, which is the more likely of the two scenarios to achieve a win for the Americans. I did see one guy, and he was very, very, very adamant about how in favor this event was to the Americans. In my experience, I do feel that this is actually much more in favor of the Germans than it is to the Americans, because like I said, early game, the Americans have the advantage. You're going to be much further away from the convoy, and they're going to close in the distance, and it's going to be a lot of Americans just dropping depth charges and stuff. The hard part is getting to the convoy. Once you're in range of the convoy, you're going to be able to pretty easily hit 2 or 3 ships and kill those guys. I think you might see me die here. I can't remember for sure, but you can obviously, all the depth charges are pretty close by. And I'm throwing my reverse on and diving. Yeah, one of them a little bit further away damaged me. Did pretty significant damage. We're taking on water, and the submarine is now angled downwards. So taking damage in the submarine, it's not always lethal, but sometimes it will, even when it's not lethal, take you out of the fight, So now here I am again. I'm kind of stuck facing downwards. I can't fully surface, I believe, at this point. So I can go up to periscope depth still, but if you can see, my submarine's kind of angled downward, so it makes firing the torpedoes a little bit trickier and stuff like that. In fact, I can't remember if I could even fire torpedoes. It's showing that it's green and that I can. It might just have been that I had to fire them further out or something like that because of the angle I was at. At this point, I was still trying to maybe try to angle up my submarine and see if I could get it to even out regardless, but wasn't having much luck with that. I've got my periscope up because I was planning to try and shoot. I think, maybe that's what it was, is I couldn't use the periscope even though it was extended, is because we were down, angled down. It technically wasn't above the water. You can see some torpedoes and stuff going past me, and then they finally kill me. PBY Catalina came and dropped some 100-pounder bombs on me and killed me while I was near the surface. So we're going to take out the HE-111 here for the last little bit of the match. I don't even think we have time to get in and get a kill with it in this video. Again, this is all recorded after the fact. But yeah, no, this I do really like this game mode here. It's been an absolute blast. I do wish there was more of it. I would be very, very keen to see, though, what this looks like in actual proper PvP and not some like asymmetrical PvP thing. This is a fun event. I love the asymmetrical nature of it. I love that we're like convoy hunting. It feels really good in a submarine. It's a lot of fun both to play as the Americans and as the Germans. You know, both are very unique gameplay. You know, obviously as the Americans, you're trying to hunt down the submarines and spot them and find where everybody's at. As the Germans, you know, you're trying to avoid all the depth charges and stuff. Both can be really crazy as Americans trying to like dodge in between naval mines when you're trying to go depth charge a guy and you have all these close calls with the naval mines. And as submarines, you know, sometimes I've just seen, you know, it's like there's depth charges and hedgehog rounds left and right, and you have torpedoes all over the place because the destroyers have, you know, limited torpedoes and everything, and it's just freaking insane and crazy, and it's very intense to be in the middle of that and trying to like dodge those left and right, and you're having to like dive underwater and then resurface real quick to try and target guys down. It's just utter madness, and I love it. So now we've spawned back in. We spawned at the top spawn, and you know, you can see we're a little bit closer to the convoy at the start here of the spawn. We're still kind of far out, but much closer than we were with the initial spawn, just to give you guys again a better idea of why this is more in favor of the Germans in the late game versus the early game. And as you can see too, a lot of the American ships are kind of busy engaging in other stuff, so I can pretty much just safely sit on the surface at the moment. They haven't really noticed me. There's a good chance, too, that even if I got shot once or twice, I might be able to get away without getting too badly hurt and just dive down and run off and kind of go away and do whatever, you know, hide underwater for a little bit until I resurfaced and everything. Now, for completing the event, there is 5 rewards, which I'm showing off on screen now, which are, I believe it's 3 decals, 2 decorations, and a icon, so completing this stuff will get you the icons and decals and stuff like that. I think it's only showing 2 of the decals on the screen and 2 of the decorations. It's not showing everything. But yeah, it's an absolute blast. In order to actually accomplish this, if you guys are playing, you'll have missed a few days by now. If you're trying to get this, you'll have to pay for the previous days, but in order to actually complete it, you basically need to get 1500 mission score as the US and 1500 mission score as the Germans, which means if you're playing this out, you'll have to play at least 2 matches of this per day. Obviously, that is dependent on how well you do performance-wise to get the mission score, so you could be playing as little as 2, but, you know, as many as 1,000 matches if you're incredibly bad. That's probably unlikely for most people. I would say it's probably, most people are going to be playing somewhere in the realm of probably like 4 to 6 matches to actually complete this. Though, again, it is kind of contingent on how well you do in the mission. I've had some 1500 score missions already, so it is definitely possible to just have the 2 missions and do that well in it right off rip. But thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take it easy.